So you're probably aware that there was a recent request for an emergency injunction to stop Operation Metro Surge, and that request was denied. I wanted to kind of get into the history of why that happened, how that happened, but also the future of how it's not over and there are still paths and avenues for that to still happen, because it's kind of getting lost in the news. So if you're interested, please join me for a second. All of this started in December when the ACLU filed a lawsuit on behalf of 6 protesters who were harassed by ICE agents. They were peacefully observing and documenting what was taking place. And these agents, I believe, surrounded a vehicle, pointed rifles at them, who were harassing them, pepper spray, you name it. And so there was a lawsuit filed on their behalf, and it asked for federal agents to not be able to use pepper spray and the non-lethal tactics and not arrest protesters. And that went to a judge by the name of Kate Menendez, and she agreed. And so she passed a ruling saying that the ICE agents were not allowed to use those non-lethal means and to arrest protesters on site, arrest them for following vehicles, you name it. Well, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals came in and said, no, it's too broad and it's too vague, and the class of individuals who are being protected is not defined. Because what the lawsuit, the ACLU lawsuit, had requested was a pretty broad range of things across the board. And the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal says, this is kind of just telling ICE to follow the law, and it's not specific enough. And I know that sounds weird, right? Because they should follow the law, but it was not allowing, in what they said, for ICE agents to respond to conditions on the ground. And so that was overturned by the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals when the other lawsuit came up to actually stop Metro Surge, and I believe that was filed by Minnesota AG Keith Ellison. Kate Menendez, who was the judge from the first one who had passed that injunction to stop tactics being used on protesters, she denied the Metro Surge injunction because she said, listen, if the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals stopped this about tactics, there's no reason to believe that they would not stop any attempt to prevent the surge from continuing, right? She had tried to get a limited assistance to protesters, and the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals said that's too vague, that's too broad. She had no reason to believe that the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals would have passed a end to the operation altogether. And that wasn't saying that she was supportive of it. She actually was very damning on ICE agents and what they were doing with Metro Surge. She was just basically hand-tied. She was stymied in what she could do and what she was able to provide as far as relief from the surge. But the case is not over. There's still an appeal going on. There are still options for ACLU. The appeal itself will continue to look at the evidence, continue to look at the merits of the case, and then the plaintiffs can ask for an en banc session. And if you remember, we got into this around Portland and Chicago, looking for an en banc collection of judges, which is the entire Eighth Circuit, to make a ruling. So that can be requested as well from the ACLU. They can also request the definition, the court to provide the definition of which protesters, which people can be protected. They can offer those up as their suggestions and then see what the court says. Because the court isn't just saying that ICE can go do whatever they want. There is some latitude and some freedom of ICE agents to do things as a federal government. But it's one of those things where if they're going to, as they continue to appeal or file another lawsuit, it needs to be a little bit more specific as far as what they're asking the court to do. And the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals has ordered an expedited review of the case, allowing the ACLU to argue on the merits of the case again and to bring forward more information. So When this decision came down, yeah, it was frustrating, and I think a lot of people said, "Well, it's over. They'll be able to do whatever they want," and I don't think that's the case. So there are more levels of this. The lower court judges have done a great job in protecting American citizens and protesters in a lot of spaces. Again, if you go back and look at the National Guard decisions about basically making Trump pull back from that attempt to send the National Guard into those spaces, I think we're kind of seeing that here as well. It's not going as fast as we would like. Appeals, trials, lawyers, you name it. But there are things that are working in that direction. Again, the ACLU will probably come back and refine its decision about, which class of protesters are we protecting and why, and trying to get the court to support some of their litigation, some of what they're requesting. And so it seems to be more of a refinement thing because of the broadness or the vagueness of what they were requesting in the first place. Again, not what we wanted, not what we're hoping for, but these appeals are still ongoing and they're not over yet. So I thought it was interesting, like how we got to this point where a Biden appointee, Kate Menendez judge, had been so, protester in protecting people, and then came out and said, well, I can't stop the Metro surge. And it makes sense to me now. But it still has those layers that it's got to go through with the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, potential en banc where all of the judges in the Eighth Circuit, weigh in on this, as well as appeals, maybe even beyond that, going to the Supreme Court. So it's not over, but it is a kind of bump in the road. So I hope you found that interesting. And just so you're more aware. Thanks.